Yes?
I have Christy and I on Friday going over smart plans and just how to make our database way more intentional and professional and use it at a high level and super helpful.
Awesome. Thank you guys.
Thank you.
Steph?
I wanted to put a plug for you too, because he like his video of helping me do my videos, so yeah, thank you.
Yeah, if you guys want me to hold the phone, I'm good at just standing there holding it. So don't get me if you need help. Okay, last chance. Any more bucket fills? Lauren?
Oh, neat.
Okay, so today we've changed tech training a bit. So after team meeting, we've got a tech bar. This is just so you can come in, ask any questions you want. Film videos, kind of whatever you need tech wise will help you out. And then on Thursdays, we are doing a different tech class each week. And it's going to be more in line with our coaching program. So for example, we might go over 8x8s in coaching. And then right after, we're gonna go over how to implement that in command. Friday, we've got compliance with Ken. Lauren. Good.
Lauren.
So if you want to go over transactions with death and divorce,
Death in the door.
death and divorce, Ken's covering that at 9:30
Either death and or divorce.
or both. For same situations. Okay, Dalton script class, conversational frameworks. It's been going really good. Steph, were you there today?
Yep.
Kaylee's been there a lot. Do you have anything you want to say about it?
Yes,
Jason?
so the beginning class has just been like basically, basically been doing an hour-long advanced classes. The new people that should come and learn scripting aren't showing up, so come, it'd be awesome. It's useful.
Yes.
Well, and I sat in for a little bit and it was just like going through situations he's been in before and kind of reframing the conversations to go after and get that appointment. So I remember one was, there was a scenario where Dalton confirmed that he wanted the appointment. And we talked about how agents keep going, sure, let's set an appointment. What can I do to qualify you? Where they've agreed to an appointment, we just go in and get it. Like, let's set it and then figure stuff out later. Christy?
I'll say we went, we were on our open house last week and Ashley used what she's learning in this and got 5 phone numbers and contact info from neighbors.
Awesome.
Yeah,
That's huge.
yeah, huge. Like we've done Burlington before and never have had 5 in like one sitting,
Yeah.
give that much information. So it seriously it's like I haven't been able to participate because it's during something else. I have that time of the morning, but she's been going every day and it's huge,
Super valuable.
super helpful.
Yeah, and Dawn's been putting in a lot of work, so
Yes, we have.
great classes to try out if you're unsure, but then you'll stick around.
Yeah.
Okay, we got Christy's class next week. You want to plug this, Christy?
Yeah, so I'm super excited for this, you guys. This is really going to help shift your mindset, help you identify limiting beliefs, just ways to elevate your business and your success. A year ago, literally, I felt like I was wanting to move away from real estate, to be completely transparent, and went through a whole shift myself and had a personal growth, over the past year. Like it was literally almost verbatim a year ago today. I was like, I'm done.
Yeah,
So, so that's what kind of stemmed this class. So highly recommend it. I have lots of great tools, resources, and it's gonna be great.
awesome. And even though this is team meeting, we are asking you guys just to sign up. We have a bunch of recruits who have already signed up, so we're just using this to get a head count. Make sure we can provide enough lunch. So if you haven't already scanned the code, do it.
Yeah.
Okay, we've got a laser firearms safety class. So what this is they're bringing in replica guns, but there's gonna be no live ammunition
Oh,
and they shoot lasers. So we're gonna be setting up targets around the office and you're gonna go over gun safety. It's gonna be target practice. They're gonna plug their business, of course, but it should be a lot of fun. There's only 20 spots available and we're halfway filled. So if you guys are interested, scan the QR code, get signed up now. It's Friday, 1 to 3. It'll be a lot of fun. And then we've got another Bites and Insights coming up at the end of the month. We're gonna be announcing our panelists at the end of the week. But if you were at our last one, I thought it was awesome. We had a great mastermind afterwards. People stayed a lot longer than the class actually went. But tons of fun. Kaylee brings a bunch of sourdough, good treats. So another class to go to.
So are you putting her on the spot, or she already said we can have sourdough?
I would reach out to Kaylee. Okay, and then we've got the Agent AI Summit. So this is gonna be in 2 weeks. It's gonna be instead of team meeting, and it's down in Salt Lake, and there's a $35 registration fee. On this right side of the screen, we're kind of going over before and after of AI. So what this isn't is, what is ChatGPT? This is gonna be a lot more applicable of what are some different AI resources you should be using right now. So if you know Shoni Ivins, he's teaching it. And he did a little preview about a month ago in our leadership course. And he went over one that I hadn't heard of before called Otter AI. And all it does is it jumps in on your Zoom call or a phone call, records a transcript, and then lets you ask it questions. So for example, I have to record all the meetings I don't want to listen to on Zoom. And then I just tell me, what are my 3 takeaways from this meeting? And what's the one thing I need to do today? And it writes me out, here are your 3 top priorities from the meeting. Here's what you should be doing. So it's just a great way, maybe if you're going into buyer's consultation, seller consultation, you can record the meeting, put that into a transcript, and then you don't have to be taking notes. You've got all that notes just written out for you. So this will be an awesome class. Shoni's saying he wants to give it an $800 value for your 35 bucks. So if you have any interest, just scan the QR code. It should be a lot of fun.
It's only in person.
It's only in person. It won't be recorded.
And if you're not using AI, it's like you're getting left. behind. It's
Yeah.
Pretty.
There's one quote that a podcaster says I like. He says, AI is not going to take your job, but someone that understands AI will take your job. And then we've got Red Day coming up. Lauren, do you want to talk about this?
So as you all may know, or if you don't know, Red Day is a day that Keller Williams International has put on. We close our doors. This is not a day for business. This is a day to give back solely to our community. So this year we're going to do pantry packs in Davis County. There's a large percentage of children who actually go home on the weekends and don't eat another meal until they go back to school. So we're really focusing on getting those children fed. They'll take these pantry packs home with them on the weekends if they aren't able to have food at home. So our goal this year is to pack 1,000 pantry packs. They're about $3.50 to pack at this point. So we're gonna try and raise $3,500. So this means we need agents' help. And we're asking that you put this out to your sphere of influence and raise funds as well. We're gonna have a fun little contest. So the agent who wins the most or who raises the most funds, you guys can get sponsors involved, whatever that looks like for clients, however you guys want to do that. But whatever agent raises the most money, there'll be a fun little thing to do. We haven't planned it yet, but there's been some ideas of like doing a dunk tank and having you go live and your clients can watch you get dunked in the dunk tank since you raised the most money or something like that. Maybe we'll smash a pie in your face or something.
Something good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you seem like.
We can do that. Suggestions welcome, but yeah, you can smash a pie in my face. If you want, but that'll have to be a hair wash face. We'll have to plan that.
We set it up and you can smash or throw pies at the leadership.
Yeah, maybe something like that. So
I mean,
I
really want to see that, yeah.
we'll look at, we're still figuring out those details, but
You can choose. You throw
sign
pies.
up, we'll take care of that. If you have any questions, let me know. We'll keep promoting it throughout and there'll be more details, but funds do have to be, we have to wrap up fundraising 2 weeks before the event, 2 weeks and 1 day to be exact, before the event. So I just kind of want to give you guys time to get this out and get some money raised.
What if we don't want a shirt? Cause we already have a shirt. We have to buy another shirt?
No,
Cause it says that I have to buy a shirt.
it's always been discussed.
Okay.
Yeah.
I have an extra shirt or four. If anybody else wants.
Yeah, Ken.
Yeah, so this is a passion of mine. I really hate the fact that 1 in every 10 children in Davis, we were kind of go home on Friday. And because of poverty or because of family situation, they don't they don't know where their meals coming from over the weekend. And these pantry packs, really help fill that gap. There's macaroni and cheese and stuff like that that they can fix. They try to make it as balanced as possible for the kids. But 1 out of every 10 in Weber Davis County, they distribute 4,000 of these packs every week to the schools. They try to do it discreetly, so they're taken to the office, and then the teachers who feel like the children in their classroom have a food scarcity. While they're out to recess, they'll take these packs and put them in their backpack. So it's done very discreetly so that they're not bullied or no one asks any questions about it. It's very discreet. And so there's a huge need out there. And this is one way of us trying to help fill that need. We need about 30 of you here on that day or more to assemble the pantry packs. We go get the products in bulk, bring them here. We create an assembly line, put the packs together, take them back to the take it back to the food pantry, and then they distribute them. So it's a great project. It's kind of fun. To put those packs together and work side by side with you guys and doing something that's really awesome. If we raise more than $3,500, we'll do more packs than that, but the goal is to try to do 1,000 packs. But ultimately, it'll be decided by how much money we raise.
Yeah, I think it'll be good. I'm excited for this, and it's not physical labor, which is nice. Especially as it starts to get a little bit warmer outside, I think that could be a little harder, but it should be a great event we can get involved in. Okay, Family Reunion Unlocked. So what this is KWRI came out with a website where of all the events they had, they put together a little highlight clip from each event. So if you missed out on Family Reunion or you went and you just didn't take notes like you want to, this will just have one pagers, little highlight clips from every single panel, speech. This is a great resource for you to get some more information, maybe get some insights on classes you wanted to go to, but just couldn't reach. Mega Agent Camp's coming up. They're doing the discount pricing for $1,000. Again, this one's in San Antonio versus Austin, and the price is going to increase in 1 month. So I just put that on your radar. Spring Forward Social. So here's just 31 social media prompts for March. This is something you're interested in where you just don't know what to post for social media. I just use this for ideas. So what I like to do is I just get a couple ideas. Maybe I mash them together. I don't use them all, but this helps me jog the brain. You got it, Luke? Okay, and then make sure you're making your phone calls in a TCPA compliant way. Don't get fined because it's not our fault, it's yours, and we're not paying for it. Okay, we're now going into seller financing.
Oh, everyone's so excited.
We were also just making a quick announcement too for Amicus Title. This is Heather, in case you guys don't know.
Yeah,
I know there are some. So, we're growing and want to keep up with all of you. So we've got Andrea Bastion, who is, you'll be seeing her around the office, is another escrow officer. So she will be somebody that you'll be able to work with as well. But we just wanted to bring her in so that you would know her and as you see her around. Yeah. Andrea, just wanna say anything?
No, I look forward to get to know you guys. The idea is that I'll be in the office, you know, a few days a week, so I'll be around. If you do have some kind of questions, you can pop in. So hopefully you'll be just seeing a bigger presence for Amicus here in the office, so we can do. I don't need. Yeah. Okay.
Thanks.
Thanks, guys.
Hi, everybody. My name is Crystal. I'm with Fidelity National Title Work Company of San Jose. So today we're going to talk about seller financing. We plan on to get 2 hours. We will have a break, so I just split it in 2 parts. To kind of make it a little less boring and you guys can get up. Okay, so class overview, first hour, we'll talk about the intro to seller financing, different types of seller financing. There's about 6 main types everyone uses seller financing for. Second hour, we'll go over benefits, risk, and practical considerations. It's very important when we're doing seller financing. Not only do you understand the great benefits, also I will make sure. Do you need it to be an hour? Oh, it's an hour, sorry. I will push it to be an hour. If you have more questions later, you guys can definitely reach out to the team. And it's great, they can also answer questions too, but I will go through it as fast as I can, okay? So we'll go through, talk about, benefits and risks. So obviously there's great benefits to seller financing. There's also a lot of risks that people don't understand. When it comes to seller financing, they just see numbers and think it's a great deal and they kind of move forward. So we'll get going. So what is seller financing? So seller financing is when the seller of a property provides financing to the buyer instead of the buyer obtaining the traditional mortgage from a bank or a lender. So essentially, the seller in this case acts as the bank, allowing the buyer to make payments over time rather than paying the full price up front. Some key features of seller financing. So the buyer and seller agree on loan terms. That includes your interest rate, monthly payments, and loan duration. You guys have an addendum to your contract. It's so important to get those filled out ahead of time and get it to title so then we can prepare documents. So we're the ones preparing typically if they know deed of trust, unless you have an investor who really has all that detailed out. That document is very important for us because it will outline everything. If something is missing, we will circle back with you. Say, we really need this item. If we don't have it, we won't be able to prepare documents. The buyer will make regular payments to the seller, just like traditional mortgage. We always recommend using a service like escrow specialist. They will be able to keep track of all the payments, and it's great for tax purposes. And then if payments are missed, they will notify the seller sooner rather than later. Depending on the agreement, the seller may hold onto title. We don't really like these, but we know they exist, aka contract for deeds. And then some do transfer ownership immediately. So that's where an owner's policy will be issued right then and there when the sale happens. The arrangement can be structured in multiple ways, and we'll go over those. So why buyers use seller financing? It's pretty simple. The majority of them is basically for either qualification. So they have bad credit scores, the banks require better credit, stable income. So this is great for 1099 people who don't have consistent W-2s, but have the income and the cash to put down up front. There's flexible terms. Obviously, buyers can negotiate better interest rates, payments, schedules, and then have a lower down payment in some cases. There's a faster closing process. So really, if you get us everything over the contract, we can get these closed within 48 to 72 hours. Making sure all the government agencies are up and running and we can get everything done. But, just pretty much on all your major counties, we can get them done pretty fast. And then you avoid private mortgage insurance. A lot, especially right now with how high interest rates are and then how high the prices of homes go, a lot of buyers don't have that 20% to negate the PMI with the traditional lender. Why a seller would offer financing? So it attracts more buyers, especially in the market right now where interest rates can be all over the place. Sometimes you'll see sellers offer seller financing percent lower than what's on the market, but then they're still making money on top of the bank's money. They earn an interest income, so instead of receiving full payment up front, they'll get payments over time, which will also incur interest, just like a lender would. They can sell a property faster, and then they have potential of higher sale price. So you can build in like that extra down payment into your sales price, which gets them, more equity in the long run. And there's tax benefits as well. So if your sellers only own the property for 6 months to a year, if they do seller financing, they can sometimes negate that tax for the quick turnaround with the IRS. Any questions about this? I know I'm going to go through fast. Okay. So seller financing is not just for your home. So obviously, we have real estate transactions. Those are hard to finance properties. there are some buildings, like for example, downtown, there are a couple buildings that have airspace leases. And a lot of lenders can't loan to those properties because of the airspace lease and the ramifications of that is called due. So they could be really great for those type of units. Buyers with poor or no credit. And then investment properties. So a lot of investors will utilize seller financing where they don't have to put a lot down and then they could just make payments to the current owner. Business acquisitions. So this is used for buying small businesses. The buyer wants to purchase business but can't secure the full financing. So if it's a new LLC and they're just purchasing a business, they don't have that equity. This is a great way to get their feet in the game and start their business. Then there's seller earnout deals. So this is instead of a lump sum sale, the seller gets payments over time based on business performance. Then we have land purchases, which they're at the bottom. So it's for vacant land deals. A lot of lenders don't like to loan on vacant land. And so this makes it kind of a good alternative for that. And developers buying large land parcels. So investors want to subdivide the land, negotiate seller financing to preserve their cash flow. I will skip the case study here. I'll do more case studies as we go through the types of seller financing. So there's different structures. And again, each of them have their advantage and each of them have their risk. So we have main types. We have the seller carryback mortgage, which is the owner financing. This is the most common one. We have a wraparound mortgage. These can only be used in conventional. You cannot wrap a VA or an FHA loan. Yes, people do that, but it is not good practice. Those notes are called way more than a conventional. And also with that, if a title person, a lender involved, or a real estate agent gets fined enough for wrapping FHA, you will no longer be able to insure FHA loans. You won't be able to participate in those programs. So just great to keep in mind. A lot of people talk about that because they'll just do a deal, but then we're big things. You could do an assumption mortgage with the seller financing. So this is where they can assume the current loan. Like there are some simple loans out there, but then the seller finances the down payment to make up for the purchase price. Then we have a lease option, and my screen cut out. That's okay. So lease option, which is rent to own, land contracts, which is contract for deed, and then the last one is the lease agreement. And we'll kind of go through all of those. So first one, seller carryback. So seller provides financing to the bank. Buyer makes mortgage payments directly to the seller. This is again the traditional one. So seller and buyer agree to loan amount and straight terms. Buyer makes monthly payments to the seller. A promissory note and mortgage are recorded to protect both parties. So in this one, there will be a warranty deed signed at closing and recorded, so title will transfer to the buyer. And then you'll have a deed of trust that is signed and issued to protect your seller. So on these, I always recommend your sellers to get a loan policy. So that protects their interest in the property for the amount they're doing their seller financing for. A loan policy. Yeah, so I always recommend them. Obviously, it's another expense to your buyer. Your average loan amount here is say $500,000, it's about another $1,200 expense. But again, it protects your seller's interest in the long run. The note is always sent out to buyer and seller ahead of time to make sure that everybody agrees to the terms beforehand. So that way at the table people aren't arguing back and forth. Some pros about this, obviously there's no bank approval needed, the seller earn interest on the loan, quick closing process. Now the cons obviously are the seller carries the risk, the buyer defaults. There's due on sale clause that can trigger for full repayment. So like I said, people will do different types of financing over property and then requires legal documentation to protect both parties. When you do these, we will prepare a lot of legal documents. If you are an investor who's constantly doing this, I would highly recommend you to hire an attorney
to draft your documents for you to make sure that you have the legal verifications that you would like in it. The benefits for the buyer, obviously, is buyer with trouble getting physical financing can have financing, and sellers willing to accept payments over time instead of the lump sum right up front. Any questions about the carryback? Okay. Wrap around. So the seller keeps their existing mortgage and finances a new loan for the buyer at a higher interest rate. So this would be, let's say a conventional mortgage at a 3.75%. They deal with seller financing at 5%. They're making money off of the bank's money, right? So it's a great benefit for your sellers. So the seller's original mortgage remains in place. The buyer pays the seller a new loan amount at a higher interest rate. The seller makes payment to the original loan while making profit from the interest difference. On these, this is where we definitely recommend having an escrow specialist because there's multiple payments happening, right? So you have a lump sum payment, your mortgage, your escrow specialist will separate out and make your loan payment for you. They'll make rate payments if applicable, and then they'll also pay the seller. Then at the end of every year, they'll then provide the accurate tax documentation to your seller for how much the buyer paid in taxes and interest and how much equity, how much income they made off of the payments throughout the year. So just an easier process. Also, it alleviates any legal ramifications later. So the seller can't say, nope, you didn't make payment, so I'm defaulting on you. You have a clear track record. Yeah.
Don't all boards have a do on cell phone?
But there's some that are, so when you do seller financing, when you do your deeds of trust, you have two options. You can either do, there's a basic deed of trust where you have to go to a judicial foreclosure. It doesn't have all the foreclosures information in there. It doesn't have the do on sale clause. And there's more detailed deeds of trust that kind of go through the steps like a normal 19-page deed of trust does for the lender. So there are two different types of deeds that a seller can issue. I always obviously recommend to have all the extra language in there, even if you don't need it. But that's where it can kind of be different in the seller.
So you can do one of these, even if it has a do on cell clause?
Yeah, so this is where we say conventionals can be wrapped. FHA and VAs.
So when you say wrap, you're saying you're putting a higher interest rate on, what if you don't put a higher
Yeah.
interest rate, you pay it? That's not wrap.
It's still
It's
is.
still
technically.
So it depends on how you're structuring it.
It's not wrapping.
Yeah,
It's not making-
it wouldn't be.
not making-
So that would be more of an assumption, right? I wouldn't, again, don't do assumptions on FHA, VA. They really check county records often. Maybe not every year, but it could be every other year. And if they see that transfer of ownership has happened and they reach out to your seller and they can't prove their part of that transfer, so like let's say it transfers into an LLC or to two people's different names, and they can't prove relationship or they can't prove that they own part of the LLC, the lender will call that out too.
Or just leave it on the table.
Yeah.
Put yourself on.
So then that would be a contract for you. For that too, which is local, but, so like a wrap though, so like if they have, like a $100,000 mortgage, right, with a 4% interest rate, the seller can sell the home for 200,000, do a total finance of that 200,000. They'd be making interest off at 200,000 at 6%. So obviously, a portion of that would go to the main mortgage, and the leftover would go to the seller. So they would pretty much pay their mortgage, and continue to make about 4% profit on the. The pros, again, is like the seller earns a profit, and then allows buyers to access financing if bank says no. The cons, the original lender may call the note due, and if the buyer defaults, the seller is still responsible for their mortgage. So in these deals, when you do wrap around, I would recommend building in there, whether it's the buyer that pays for it or the seller, to put at least a 2-month reserve with your escrow specialist. Or if you're saying like, the buyer has 90 days to catch up with payments before your seller can default, whatever that agreement is, have that amount of mortgage payment reserved somewhere. So in that way, no one's kind of stuck in the red Okay, and then it is best for sellers with low interest mortgages who are looking to profit on the difference. Like I said, like, there's some sellers out there who have a lovely 3% interest rate. And if they don't need all the cash up front, but they don't want the home anymore, it's a great way for them to start making money. If they could offer 6%. And buyers who can't get bank loans, obviously this is very repetitive for buyer side, because they can't afford like their monthly payment at deferred rate. Any questions about the wrap mortgage? Okay, so this is assumption of mortgage with seller financing. So you can just do an assumption, right? There are multiple ways to do an assumption. There is an unofficial way where you just start making the payments and transfer ownership. Very terrifying in my world because I have seen it more than once where people just get that note called and then they end up being foreclosed on, the seller and the buyer get penalized for it. There's an official assumption of mortgage. So there are some mortgages that can be assumed at the current rate that is listed on the property. So the buyer would have to go through the normal process with the current lender to get approved for that assumption. And then they could do a seller financing to make up that difference. So kind of, in a way, this is building out the Utah housing, right? Where the Utah housing do main mortgage and then the second for down payment. It's kind of that build, but with the existing property. So then we have pros for this, buyer's benefits from lower interest mortgage. The seller receives a lump sum or a second income stream, depending on how you build it. And then it is, some loans don't allow assumptions, there's only a handful. Pretty much on these, we would just pull the deed and it would say on there if they're not assumable or if they are assumable, the buyer should, why everyone should keep copies of their documents, should have a copy of their note. It'll also say it on the note if it's assumable or not. And then the seller remains responsible for default for the fund, because they still have interest payments. And then, again, as for buyers, seeking low interest, and then sellers with assumable mortgages. Any questions? Here's one.
So if you do assumption, if I do an FHA assumption, I can assume the loan.
If the FHA will write it, assume it.
It'd be a two, but conventional loan would be
Yeah, so you have to, so VA, you have to still have the qualification to prove it. Now the assumption process does take longer. Like if you go through that process, it's basically going through the same process if you're getting like a loan now, okay? So every loan will say though, energy trust is before.
If it's a formal assumption, though, the seller isn't responsible for the default on the original.
Right, so the default responsibility would only be if they did the second financing, so if they did the seller financing for the down payment. So, yeah, they would just become second in line to the assumed mortgage. Okay, but the lenders, like there's a whole process, so the sellers have to agree. There's a risk to the lender to do the assumption for the seller and the buyer. But I mean, I rarely see assumptions, typically they are on the VA loans. So. Any questions? No? Okay. Wait.
On the ones that you can't wrap, what about doing like land contracts?
Sure, you can totally do that. There's a lot of risk when you do that, so we're gonna go through like the lease option, so you can start making payments through there. Contract for deed, you can do a contract for deed there where you can't like for the FHA. A lot of people will do contract for deeds on those, so the title ownership doesn't transfer. We'll go through this again, but it doesn't transfer ownership to the buyer. Is still at risk for the seller's responsibilities. So even if you have a contract for deed, if the seller's still on record, right, and they start getting defaults otherwise, whether they didn't pay federal taxes or something like that, it can still be leaned against the property, and there's still risk there title-wise. So title says don't do it, right? You'll do an interest policy, a contract for deed, which slightly protects the new buyer, but there's still a lot of risk on the land contracts or contract deeds. So we recommend not to do them, just because you're not like mitigating the risk of having a seller. If your seller could just not respond anymore, and your buyer has to then pay for these defaults. There's a lot of different things that could go wrong in those types. So, but with we'll start here though, and we'll go over more detail the other ones. So lease option, so the buyer leases the property with the option, but not the obligation to buy it later. The portion of rent can go towards the first price. Obviously, you guys structure those deals. However, the seller and buyer want that to be. A seller and buyer agree on a rental price and a future purchase price for it. The buyer pays rent often at a premium, and the percentage of rent is credited towards purchase. Buyer can purchase property at the agreed upon price before the lease expires. So how our title comes into play, we would do a lease policy on things like this. So the lease policy will protect the interest of the leasing on these deals. The buyer can test the home out, I guess, for that's a pro. Easier for buyers for credit to transition into homeownership. Seller can charge a higher rent and sell in a locked price. Cons, the buyer can walk away. So that at the end of the contract, they have the option to not exercise these ones. If the home value declines, the buyer obviously may not exercise the option to purchase. The seller remains responsible for the mortgage until the sale is finalized. This is best for buyers who want to buy before they buy, and then sellers who are willing to wait for a complete sale. The land contract, this is the contract for deed. So seller retains ownership on title until the buyer has made all the payments, and the buyer makes monthly payments like a mortgage, but they don't get the legal title until the final payments are made. So some people will do a contract for deed for 7 years, and I've seen them write it for the full rest of the term of the loan. So if you're representing a buyer, means definitely read through these contracts. I've seen a lot of people get pulled into deals with investors that are not just because they have woven into their contracts for deeds with their attorneys and things that do not benefit your buyers at all. Pros, so again, easier qualification process for buyers. It can be structured for lower monthly payments, could be used when a bank won't finance deal. Cons, buyer defaults, seller can repossess property back because they still own the property. So basically what would happen in this situation for title is you would do a notice of interest recording. So the current owner of the property say have a notice of interest because of this contract and this amount. I have the right to default on the property if payments aren't made by a certain point. And the buyer has limited rights until the deed is transferred. So in your negotiations, you can say, you know, you can go ahead and renovate the property, or they cannot touch the property until they pay all of their dues to the seller. Some states require a judicial foreclosure if the buyer has paid significant balance. And then it's best for buyers with limited credit history and sellers who don't need immediate payment. Any questions about these? So we don't like these because of the title risk, but
Is a notice of interest filed immediately? Like before anything goes wrong?
yeah, so at closing.
Oh,
So there would be a small kind of like policy, leasehold policy that would be issued for the contract for deed upfront. And then upon transfer of ownership to the full owner, all the fees are paid upfront. Notice of interest is recorded on the property at closing. So once the funds come in, that's part of the reporting. That's all that's really reported on the state, unless there's some sort of additional financing for the down payment. So just be a notice of interest recorded on the property. Ownership stays in the name of the current owner. Again, that opens up the buyer to all the negative things as a seller defaults on, you know, federal taxes or anything like that. And even if the seller has businesses, right, and they don't have the proper things set up, they get brought into, you know, a lawsuit, like the property could be brought into that. So there's just so much risk with it. And technically, technically speaking, the seller still owns the property, even though you have a contract on there saying, you know, you can't do any digital financing. You still could, you know, so there's all these things to think about. When it comes to contract for these, there's just a lot of risk. So then they have a lease purchase agreement, which is similar to lease option, but this agreement requires, so they're locked in, have to exercise at the end of the agreement to purchase property. The seller buyer agreed to a future purchase price. The buyer rents the home for a specific time, usually 1 to 3 years is that on average what I see. And then a portion of the rent is credited towards the purchase price. And at the end of the term, the buyer has to purchase property. So I see these are really great for people who have good income, but don't have $60,000 to put down. And so over time, they just make payments, and then eventually they have that equity in the home to where they can get a solid loan for themselves. So these are great options. So pros and ensures the guaranteed sale for the seller, allows the buyer to secure their financing, portion of rent builds equity, right? So you get that 20%. Cons, the buyer is obligated to purchase, even if there's financial circumstances change. Even if they need to move out of the state, they're locked in. So, if the buyer, cannot secure financing, they're open to legal ramifications for it. It's best for buyers who need time to build credit and sellers who want a good care.
For a seller, that one's probably best.
Yeah. Okay, this is a break. You guys will take a quick break. Not, I can just keep going. Want me to keep going?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, going. So we're gonna go through the benefits and then risks and how to mitigate them. Okay. And if you guys want examples on how like to keep track of these, I have a bunch of them too, and I'd be more than happy to share them with you on common structures that I've seen. So benefits of seller financing. So the benefits for buyers, easier qualification, more flexible terms, faster closing process, lower closing costs, and possible lower interest rate. Benefit for seller is it attracts more buyers, earn interest income, you can sell property faster, higher sales price potential, and tax advantages. So, easier qualification, you guys all know that. Traditional lenders require higher credit scores, stable income, low debt to income ratios. With seller financing, the seller decides whether to approve the buyer, making it possible for buyers with low to no credit history to purchase the property. Again, this is great for self-employed people who have fluctuating, incomes throughout the years. More flexible terms, the interest rates, payment schedules, and down payments are negotiable. Buyers and sellers can customize their terms to fit their needs. So a buyer can negotiate a lower monthly payment for the first year while improving their finances, and then with payments increasing in a year or two, so they can kind of do that adjustable too. There's so many ways that we can build these out to benefit both parties in the long run. There's a faster closing process for these, so there's no need to wait for bank approvals, appraisals, underwriters, obviously just still doing an inspection. And then deals can close in days. Like I said, we can get these pretty much done within 72 hours for you guys. As again, as long as the counties are open and running. We had exchange down yesterday, we're gonna do date down, so things happen out of our control. So the number D, lower closing costs. So there's no additional lender fees, there's no origination fees or PMI. Especially if you're doing it where the buyer can spill the equity in the property, they would just do a refi, there would be a way for them to build in a refi at that point. And they can do, they don't have to have all those extra fees, higher interest rates, everything a little bit different for them. So like they save in purchase prices about 5,000 to 10,000 in lender fees, just depending on who your lender is, right? So obviously there's UWM that has super low. There's some brokerages or banks that have a $7,000 origination fee, just depends. Possible lower interest rate. So, in markets like this, in the past year that we've had where interest rates are 7s, the seller can come in and offer 6%, and they can still make money and it's a quicker sell for them. For the seller, it attracts more buyers, because they'll have more buyers that are able to qualify to purchase property. And then it helps in a slower market where it's hard, like right now. So like if the seller is struggling to sell a unique property, offering seller financing, you immediately get multiple people interested in it. Earn interest income. So instead of receiving the lump sum up front, the seller can earn monthly payments with interest. Sometimes utilizing the bank's money, which is great. And it's often at a higher rate normally than your savings account, right? They have often the property sells faster because you don't have all the longer wait time for securing financing. Higher sales price. So some buyers are willing to pay that premium for that flexible financing. And then the seller can justify a higher asking price because of their risk that they're taking on by doing the seller financing. And then some tax advantages. So I kind of touched on this before, that capital gains tax. So if your seller hasn't owned the property for more than 2 years, to avoid, it's a great way to kind of avoid that. I didn't say it, but I am. But it's a great way for them. And then you can write the contract and say the buyer has to act within the next 2 years to pay off the seller, right? And you sell it, give the buyer the 2-year cushion to secure financing, get the credit where they need to be, et cetera, et cetera. And then the seller gets no major capital gains taxes. So it's great. That would be the best. And then risks and how to mitigate them. So again, just like everything has its advantages and disadvantages. So risk for buyer, they can have a higher interest rate. So like in a really good market, you know, when rates are decent, like the sellers will still charge that premium of 7%, but that's the risk that you take if you're not financially responsible as a buyer, but you want to purchase something, right? You need that extra time. How to kind of mitigate this is to compare seller financing with the loan terms. A lot of buyers, you know, this is where we all come together, right? The lender, you guys kind of get with your buyers to really show them all the options out there to make sure that they know that, you know, they may qualify for that beach housing that they thought they didn't qualify for. Really going over all those options with them to understand all the different terms. They do some like balloon payments. Some seller finance deals require a large lump sum payment at the end. So I see this a lot on my QuickBooks when they do seller financing. They won't necessarily be making monthly payments, but at the end they have a huge interest payment at the end. For this one, just negotiate the amortized loan with the seller, so there's no balloon payment. Then plan ahead and refinance before that payment's due. Title risk. So if the seller retains ownership again, such as a land contract for deed, the buyer does not receive the title until full payment is made. So if the seller finances or faces legal trouble, foreclosures, liens, it puts the buyer at risk to be responsible for those. So if this is another example too here is if the buyer, let's say, has been making payments to your seller and they are actually turning around and making those payments to the lender, they could default. And then your buyer loses the property because the seller's pocketing. This is where an escrow specialist or a third party really comes into play to make sure that risk and issue doesn't happen. So risk for sellers, so if the buyer stops making payments, the seller has to go through the whole process of foreclosure or evicting them, depending on which avenue you chose for seller financing. How to mitigate, so you can require that down payment to have a cushion for payments. And you can include a default clause in your deeds. Due on sale clause risk, so if the seller's mortgage is due on sale clause, lender could demand full repayment when the property is sold. So that's that risk that you take when you wrap a mortgage and transfer ownership, that the due on sale clause could be exercised at any time. So how to mitigate that, check the seller's mortgage terms. Again, I always ask for the note if the deed of trust doesn't have that information on there. It's really important. Your sellers can call the bank and get a copy of the note, call their previous title company. We can also get it from them as well. But those things are key to make sure we know all the ins and outs of the current loan of the property. And then again, You can, wrap the mortgage, that's kind of structures it a little bit better for payment safety. And then legal and tax implications, so seller financing requires proper legal documentation, or they can be hit with tax implications for the IRS. So again, use the escrow specialist, please, it just does everything for you after the deal is closed. And then difficulty collecting payments, so they're unlike a bank, the seller, has to manage payments. Okay. So again, loan servicing company, set up automatic payments, and it'll be. Okay. Any,
Question on the escrow specialist?
Yeah.
If they do default and the late penalty, and then like, they assist with the eviction process, or is that just all up to the?
no, so we have to you, or to the seller of the property. Again, it depends on how you're structuring your deed, right? So if you're doing a non-judicial, basically all you do is you do what the lender does, right? You just serve a notice of default to them, record against the property your notice of default, and then you have, it's a longer process, obviously. So you have to then go through the whole process with the court, then you default the property, get it back. If you do a judicial, you have to take them to court, and then have to evict them and show proof of down payment. That's why I say as well to have a cushion with the escrow specialist, so that way they can make payments, and they'll just note the count, right? They'll just notify, this came out of the reserve, buyer didn't pay till X day, et cetera, et cetera. So, but typically in the contracts, the buyer is responsible for all the late fees that occur. But it's still the seller's financial responsibility if there's mortgage on the property, make sure that payment's made. Okay. Any other questions? I think we're going an hour, okay. Any questions at all? And again, I have like a lot of examples and case studies I can send to you showing all the risks, showing how you can structure these loans with basic numbers. So I'll put that all in a PDF for everybody, and then I'll have to send it out to you. And if you have any questions, we're always here to answer them. Okay? Okay? All right, thanks guys.
So we got that.
Hey guys, we got Doug and Cranny who should be here in about 5 minutes with lunch. But well then, do we have any questions about tech trainings? Maybe command that I can answer?
Like.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We got the paperwork too.
Some dead. Oh,
Yeah, because Christy wanted it done, she had like. If you're like, you only got time. Did like 5 roll material.
Hey, friend, since that class went faster, conversation cards for the next little while we wait for our lunch sponsor. So can I have 2 volunteers? We'll have someone come up and be the agent and someone come up and be the client. If you don't volunteer, I'll just call on you. Like you're looking down at your spouse. You want to, Justin? Okay, do you want to be the agent or the client?
Well, I'm gonna pick the easy one. I wanna be the client.
Okay, pick your agent. That's what I don't think.
Oh, good.
You're right.
Oh,
I didn't even see Wade, I would have picked on Wade.
Wait,
Yeah.
wait, cool. Far cooler than me. He's far better at conversations than me,
I know.
a little bit.
Is this still being recorded?
Don't start it that way. Maybe.
Like, we'll just like do the thing that you're like, what is that, boomerang? You know,
Yeah.
when you glitch out on the voice, and we'll just like, sorry. That'll go on my social media.
Your social media game's been pretty good lately. Give you an effect of that.
Hey.
Rules.
I'm gonna, instead of reading one of these for you guys, I'm gonna have you, what's an objection you've heard recently? Give it to Jessie and let's see how she handled it.
I can't move because I have a 2.25%. I
Okay,
really want a new house.
so what's the payment that you'd be looking for in the?
Well, I want to keep it close to what I have.
Okay.
Which is 2,400 a month.
I definitely think that's possible, whereas you've been in since, if you're at a 2.2, you've probably been in since 2020, 2021.
Yeah.
So a lot of people don't know that homes values have increased significantly since then. I mean, you might know, since you're in the market and seeing homes now. I do think that it's entirely possible to get you into a new home with a similar.
Okay, will you guys go talk about it in the conference room, just so people can hear them, sorry.
So have you gone in and chatted with the lender yet to see what you would qualify for?
No, you were my first call.
Oh, perfect. Well, that's great because now I can get with the lender who knows going to take really good care of you. Do you happen to know how much is left remaining on your loan for your current home?
280.
Okay, that's awesome. Well, let me do some numbers really quick for you. I'm gonna get the details for your home so that we can do what's called a comparative market analysis to see what it would potentially sell for. And then we can run those numbers, like what your equity would be moving forward to roll into that next house. And we can see what other options there are out there. Another great thing is new construction builders are offering a lot of incentives for rate buy downs. So that'll also help that payment. We can see if a builder that you like will help us with that by contributing closing costs.
Really cool.
Let me get the details for your house.
So one thing I loved is it's not always, it's really not about the interest rate, right? It's about their monthly payment, can they afford it? And you totally flipped it to make it about that. I love it. I love it.
It's always easier when I'm here with you guys. It's way harder out in the world.
Yeah.
I'm like, I know what I'm supposed to say when I'm in this room. Put me out in the real world, and I'm like, wait, That's the thing
I'm like.
that I'm so-
Yeah,
Yeah, it's, I always feel like I have a block when I'm here and then I'm out the road. It's practice.
yeah, yeah.
I'm just like, why are you calling me if you wanna move? Because they don't want people to see me, like,
They want the solution, they want you to come up with the solution.
like, hold on, let me wave the magic wand. Okay, you can now afford it.
I like it, like, can we go look at this house? But I don't want. You want to commit, you wanna see the house.
Yeah, they're just scared, they need you to guide them, solve their problems. Any thoughts about that, anyone?
Feel free to rake me over the coals for my ums. Eight ums.
So
Okay,
I,
here's somebody's.
I thought it was really good to say that builders are offering incentives,
Mm-hmm.
because this is a real life, I have a client with students and I took them to a builder that it's going from 2 and some change to, there's a Richmond American has a 4%, 3.99. And so like the difference is a lot closer than if they go to a traditional lender. And food's here. And Athena.
I was like, the food side,
More important.
it's all about Athena.
Hi.
Yes.
Perfect timing. Here's Athena with Nook and Cranny.
Oh, you don't wanna be in our,
What are we doing?
we're gonna role play
For what?
on when you get an objection, so we were gonna give you one.
Give her one.
An
Give
objection
her one.
for an inspection?
Or real
Sorts
estate.
of things. Yeah, if I have object, you're just gonna give me an objection? I don't know how anybody could object to having an inspection, but.
Okay, this is Athena, Nook and Cranny.
Hi, there's lots of new faces that I haven't seen before. I'm with Nook and Cranny Home Services. We are a full service inspection company, but we also have 2 other teams. We have a plumbing team that is a full service plumbing team. We do everything from garbage disposal to mainline sewer replacement. And we have a mold remediation specialist that does odor quality or odor testing, air quality and mold remediation. And then we just added something new. So we teamed up with Spark. They're an engineering firm. And so now we can do solar panel inspections and even let your clients know if they're working efficiently. So the report takes about 3 to 5 hours to get back from the engineering firm. And it costs $250 for the solar inspection. And then we also can do home energy audits for $75 per inspection. So if you have any questions, please give me a call or text, whatever, or you can talk to me while you're eating lunch. But there's lots of food, so.
What kind of things have you guys seen on the solar panel inspection?
So we just barely started it. So I don't think that we've even announced it. You guys are the first people I've announced it to. So that's why I'm kind of like reading the paper to make sure I even know what I'm talking about. But yes, let's see. It says on my note that it checks the solar system health, the life, it can notify you of the lifespan, installation quality, and then energy storage efficiency. So
Is that doing the same time you do the other inspection or?
yes, yep, done at the same time as the home inspection. Yep. So it's,
And that's an additional $250.
yep, an additional $250 to the price of the inspection, but and then it does add an hour to the home inspection. So most typical home inspections are 2 to 3 hours, so it would add an hour, so just so you know about that. So. Awesome, well, thank you guys.
I mean,
Yeah,
how fast can you get?
you, usually next day, within the first couple of days, so, yeah.
And if you have a favorite